Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another YouTube video. And this one, I just wanted to break down. We had what was our first six-figure week in total contracted revenue. We did about $40,000 in cash that week, and we locked in about 6 figures worth of, up and coming payments for the next 30 to 60 days, 90% of which will be collected by then. And the cool thing is that I actually barely worked that week. I was sick for a portion of the week, and not only that, but I was working on some higher level tasks in the business. I was actually working on going through some training programs and just kind of getting my head into a good space for sort of the next season of business. And I've got about 5 team members now. I actually think, no, 5 including myself. I just wanted to explain to you, how to build a highly effective team and some of the mental hurdles that I had to go through in order to build my team, because I think a lot of people, when they're just getting started in business, have this idea that they're the only one that can do what they do, and that's just not true. And I'm just going to share with you some hacks that I've used to build like a high level team. And these hacks alone are worth, could easily be worth millions of dollars to you in your career. And so I really want you to take this video seriously. I know it's informal in format, it's just me with my phone, but you gotta understand this is a business owner that has a team that can spit out 6-figure weeks, without me even needing to be present. And the real motivation for this video is I'm just getting so many questions from people like, what roles are people playing? How did you train them? How do you have a good culture? How do you keep people motivated? Everything like that. And I just want to get right down to the meat of what makes a team good and how you can build one. So let me start off by saying where you should source your team from, because this is the most common issue that I hear is like, where should I source team? And I gotta tell you, man, you do not need to be building a team until you have enough of a client base and enough of an influence base in your business and in your career that team members make themselves extremely apparent to you simply when you put out a post on, or you send out an email to your list, or you put out a post on Instagram or Facebook. Like, honestly, it's really nice. It's a really good tipping point, because if you build a team too early, revenue-wise, then it won't work. Also, if you build a team too early, like influence-wise, it won't work. And that tends to be that revenue and that influence level are very linked. And so you should spend at least a year doing all the work yourself. And in my case, I spent like 1.5 years, up to 2 years doing the work myself. And then finally, once I had enough sort of social cred and I had enough of like a list that was built for myself, then I could just put out a call to action. And then I interviewed a bunch of people. So that's the first thing, is you should not hire, in my opinion, especially for like your first 10 hires, which I haven't even reached that market, and I doubt I will within the next year because we're such an effective team, just the 5 of us. But you shouldn't hire until you have enough influence to have people that really want to work with you, and that want to work with you specifically. And this is where having a personal brand comes into play. This is where putting out content is really helpful. And this is where, once you actually have an effective, revenue stream in your business, your financial models are there, you should start focusing on content and letting that kind of build influence for you, so that, you can not only find clients, but also find team members. And it puts you in a really unique position. So in order to find team members, play the long game, build your brand online, put out content, influence people with your thoughts, and add value to their lives. And slowly but surely, the people that might even be clients would also be willing to be team members. I think 3 of the 4 members that I have on my team were actually previously students or clients, depending on what term you would use. And I just saw that they were natural leaders in their own way, and I decided to just kind of upgrade them into a team level, keep them in the program, not ask for their money back or anything, just be like, yo, you should just join the team. And it was extremely easy because they already understood the product and they already understood, what we did and what we sold. So that's where you should find team members. Play the long game. Don't do Craigslist, don't do Facebook, don't do random LinkedIn searches, because odds are you're going to go through a really steep learning curve of getting them up to speed with the specific culture differences of your product and the way that you serve your clients. And it's just not worth going through that phase. So that's where you should find your team members. That's the first question I always get. Where should I hire from? Don't use any job listing sites. That's just stupid. I promise you it's not good. The other option is, if you are a successful business owner, odds are you've got a network, and you should ask your network. You should shoot a text out to everybody that you know that is doing your level of revenue or more, and just be like, yo, do you have anybody that you recommend? And I churned and burned a few sales guys that I had referred to me, but at the end of the day, the one that did the best was the one that, was a client that I then ended up training. And, he's closed a handful of our, top tier packages now, our $30,000 packages. And, I really don't have to do any sales in my company anymore. And he actually performs better than I do because he can focus on that role in a way that I can't, which is incredible. So yeah, that's where you should hire from. Those are 2 easy recommendations on where you should hire from. Now, the next step is like training and culture. One huge hack for training is if you are going through any coaching programs or online courses or any material like that, you should just send your team through those same programs, because you want them to understand the base fundamentals that have gotten you to where you are, so that they can basically just be an extension of your arm. So, there's this one sales program that I went through a long time ago, and it's not necessarily anything that I recommend to the general public, but it was good for me at the time. And when he's our head coach and our sales rep, which I think is important to mix those roles, but that's maybe a topic for later in this video, or maybe a whole other video entirely, like how you should blend roles. But he's a head coach and he's a rep, because I don't think it's actually that good that you would just have a sales rep that then your clients don't interact with at all post their investment. I just think that the ethics of that are a little blurry, and I don't really like that. And obviously the sales rep is purely commission motivated, and I just don't like what that does for a company. But that said, I just sent him through the same sales training that I went through, because it worked for me. I mean, I closed 1.2 million with my voice and like closing people on the phone. And so I just said, all right, you go through the same thing and just run it. Follow this sales training, because it worked for me. And that's a huge hack. If you are considering hiring, then you must have seen success. And if you're seeing success, then you must have worked with somebody or read certain books or gone through a program or were in a mastermind or something. You should just give them the source material that worked for you. You do not have to come up with new, creative, fancy ways of training. Just train them the same way you trained yourself, and you will actually be envious of how quick their learning curve is, because they don't only have the program, but then they actually have you, somebody who went through it and saw success, to help them course correct and sort of contextualize the information for them so they can succeed even quicker. Week 1 of working with me, our rep did 0. Week 2, he did 20 grand. And now this past week, he did 100 grand. That's 2 months into working with me. So, you got to understand that like working directly with someone that's actually been in the trenches is a powerful, powerful force. And especially when they're, hungry and they desire growth, they're going to succeed really quickly. That's not just sales rep, that's operations guys. That is finance managers. That is, advertising media buyers. That is, coaches, especially coaches, because you want to really control that client experience. So for training coaches, just record your coaching calls and let them watch the calls. It really is that simple. You do not have to do like training weekends. You do not have to do team retreats. You do not have to do any of this stuff. Just give them the source material. So really, if you're going to train your team effectively, just ask, what's my source material? What's worked for me? I'm just going to give that to them. Okay, so that's training. So so far we've covered where to find team members. Now we've covered where to train, or how to train them. And this, keep in mind, guys, this is a multi-million-dollar a year team. And this is how I've done it. It is not that complicated. And like the fact that people make it super complicated, I'm killing a lot of people's coaching businesses right now, because they teach how to build a team, and like I'm just like giving all that information away for free. Like, you do not need to pay a coach 20 grand for them to tell you this stuff. It is quite simple. Okay, so the next thing that you're gonna want to do. So you've got hiring, you've got training, and now you've got culture. Culture is a big one. The beautiful thing about having a personal brand online is that you're going to naturally attract people that think like you think. And so there's going to be a pretty simple culture fix there, again, by having an online presence. And by the way, you do not need an online presence to build a team. It is just one of those things that really helps, because people know who they're dealing with. Basically, a personal brand does the work that you would otherwise have to do the first week or 2 of having a new team member. That's really it. So if you don't have the means to put out content, if you don't have the time, or you don't want to have a Facebook group that you're active in, or a YouTube channel, or a podcast, or something like that, don't do it. You do not need to. It is just my means of building my reputation and my relationship with people at scale. That's all a brand is. It's just building relationships, and it's like a lead gen source. It's not a money machine or a team machine in any capacity. It's just kind of an influence source, and I can do what I want with that influence. So that said, you do not need it. I do not want the false belief permeating your mind right now of, I can't hire because I don't have a brand. BS. You can hire. It's just going to take you a little bit more time to get people totally enveloped in your culture, because they didn't have the content to go through before they even started working with you to get them really invested into who you are. So yeah, third tip is culture. Again, personal brand being one of them, not a necessity, because I don't want it to be a false belief for a lot of you, because a lot of people have this idea of like, it takes forever, it takes 2 or 3 years, Trey, I just want to do it next week. I get it. If that's you, just listen to me for a sec. The next thing you have to do is be open about finances. One of the things I did for my team is this past weekend, I actually did like an internal training with my team on how they can be setting up easy tax deductions in their businesses, because they are actually all separate business entities from my business that I'm on paper working with as like consultants, because I do not want to have employees on paper. I think that model is just so broken. And you can do your own research and make your own decisions, but that's how I'm doing it. And so I told them how to set up their structures, like LLC versus S Corp, all this stuff. I showed them how to, actually set up automatic monthly payments into, different life insurance policy plans that I'm a part of, so they can be automatically putting away money for the long term. I showed them how to pay themselves properly. And I also showed them, how to actually invest their money that they make with me in my business, because I don't want them to just blindly be like, operating and then not know what to do with the cash. And just be spending it on bullcrap. Like, that's not good, because then I'm gonna have a desperate team that is like desperate for the next check and like comes back to me to just make more money to fuel the next month of lifestyle expenses. And I just think that that's a really bad place for my team to be, and it's a bad place for my business, and it affects the entire entity. So I told them all, you need to save at least a year's worth of expenses before you upgrade anything, and I'm holding them all accountable to doing it. And then I showed them how to invest that money as well. So culture tip number 1 is be open about finances. A bad leader is afraid to have the hard conversations. You should be willing to sit down with somebody and say, all right, what are your financial goals? Like, how much money do you want to make in this role? Like, there's nothing wrong with asking that question, because I think a lot of people are afraid to ask that question because they're afraid that they're going to answer really high and it's going to just hurt their cash flow. But the beautiful thing is, if you set up these relationships properly, it really should be such that the more that they're making, inherently the more that you're making. And if you set up the relationships the right way, then actually hearing what their financial goals is actually very motivating. Every single one of my team members at this point, with very little exception, is making at least 6 figures a year. At least 6 figures a year. And some of them are very new to the business, so maybe it's a 6-figure a year run rate. So they haven't actually done 6 figures in a year yet, but they've done at least $8.3 thousand in a single month. Our highest paid team member probably made like 22 grand last month, right? And so we've got a really nice high paying role. And it's because I was willing to talk about finances with them. I said, all right, how much do you want to make and why? What's your motivation? And just like when you're getting somebody to invest in your product, you would understand really what their motivations are and why they desire this thing. Because if you just understand like the surface level what their role is and what their tasks are, you can't actually build a good culture. Because then at that point, you have this culture of you all in synchronicity moving towards your goals together. And that's when the team meetings, the daily team meetings that we have, become really fun and lively. And it's like, there's this kind of brotherhood sense of we're all in this together. We've all got our own individual goals, and we're all working on this vehicle together to help make them happen. So do not be afraid to have hard conversations. One of my favorite quotes about entrepreneurship is that you are going to get stuck at the level of your willingness to have the next hard conversation. And if you can't have hard conversations and you can't address the elephant in the room, then you're going to stay stuck exactly where you're at. So that's a tip maybe for a whole other video, so don't be afraid to talk about finances. Another thing, and I got this from a book called Traction, really good book. It talks about how every role should be assigned a number. Every role should be assigned a number. And this isn't to say that, everybody's gonna be like, boiled down to a number. They are ultimately people, but at the same time, this is a business and they have to do business first, and we can do people stuff later. Like, we can hang out and play video games or whatever later, but this is a business. And we are here to aid every single person. And you're not just hurting me when you don't do your job, you're hurting the rest of the team. So we all hold each other responsible in that way. So like, for example, the sales, rep, let's say his number is a minimum 30%. That's his number. He's got a percentage number. Let's say our operations guy, his number is the quality of the product according to our clients on a scale of 1 to 10. So we're actually compensating him based on the monthly quality of our product inside of our company. So that way his job is just to build an extremely clean and efficient operational back-end system to deliver great results to our clients and give them a great experience. Then you've got like our organic marketing manager. His number is how many calls that came from our organic strategies that week. That's his number. So everybody has a number. And you should be able to boil everybody's role down to a number so that you can just very quickly measure their performance. Because if you're just kind of feeling your way through how people are doing, you're not actually gonna know the performance of your team. You're just going to you can only guess. Like, as the leader, you should be able to look at your business and within 30 seconds, know exactly how it's doing. You shouldn't have to check like 8 different apps and like call 3 or 4 different people and be like, hey, how are you feeling? Like, you enjoying your role here or whatever. You should just be able to log in and like, we use Airtable, and I can literally see these numbers physically on my screen. It's like all these numbers are right there. And so I can actually check and see, how my team is doing. So everybody's got a number, okay? And you can have multiple numbers, but you need to have at least one, right? And preferably you don't have more than 2, because if you have more than 2, then you're getting a little bit unfocused and you don't actually know how to measure that person's role, and odds are you don't actually know what their role in your company is. You know what I mean? So that's another culture thing, is making sure that you're all held accountable to a number. I've got a number too, right? Like, my number is amount of pieces of content put out. My number is how much my team is paid at the end of every month. I've got a few different multiple numbers, and again, I'm kind of the exception to the rule of only having one number, because the reality is I'm the business owner, and being the business owner means I wear a lot of different hats, right? Okay, so that's another culture tip. Another culture tip, and the final one, is have people read books. Like, get them to read the stuff that helped you. Any books that you've read that have been transformational for you, buy them for your team and have them read them. Like, seriously, that is huge. Because if you can all be thinking the same way, then odds are you're gonna be able to make decisions the same way, and you're gonna respect each other's viewpoints a lot more, and there's not gonna be so much conflict when you guys make decisions. So that's another big one. And then the final culture tip is, do not hire people that have a different worldview than you. Do not. Whether it's like economic or political or religious, like, there will be an issue in your culture with that. It's a really nice thing to say that, like, oh, we're accepting of all different belief systems in my company, and you can think whatever you want. The problem with that, though, is that it changes the way you make decisions, and it changes the way that you think. And if you guys don't think the same way, then you won't be able to make decisions the same way, and there will be conflict at the end of the day with the way that you lead, because your team will not respect you as a person. So I've made this mistake of like hiring people that didn't align with me politically, or didn't align with me, religiously or whatever. And there was like mutual respect for sure. And there was like mutual, pats on the back, and we were friends, but there wasn't that sense of like brotherhood. And there wasn't that like shoulder to shoulder sense of like, we're in this together and we're on the same page in every way. And so do not make the mistake of hiring people just because they play their role well. You really want to hire people that you would be like willing to spend a week with, and you wouldn't get annoyed spending that week with them, right? And when you really have that high standard of like their views and who they are, and like just everything about them as a person, then really it gets quite easy to train them for the technical. Really, you're hiring for their attitude, their character, who they are, their beliefs, and making sure that they actually have like a good worldview, and that they've got a good background, a good track record, and then you can train them for like any role. The right team members aren't just good at the technical, but they're actually extremely coachable, and they're just effective human beings in general. And then you can train them for the technical. So, like our for example, our organic marketing guy, he was already such a beast when it came to just life. Like, he'd been a coach for years in sports, and he himself led a bunch of teams to like championships, and like he just understands how to deal with and work with people. So he had started off as a coach in my business, working with our clients, following my frameworks to train our clients, and then he ended up moving into organic marketing as well. And now he coaches our team on getting us results on organic, so that every team member that joins the prospecting team, marketing or sales, runs through him and actually learns directly under him. And so he was already an effective human being, and then I just gave him the framework and he ran with it, right? And you want to hire for that. You don't just want to hire people who just know the technical, and you don't want to hire people just because they're a good person. Like, you want to have a good person and then train for the technical. If they're a good person and they have the technical, then that's great, and hire them on the spot. But if they're just a good person and you can tell that they're sharp and that they're coachable and trainable and willing to learn, then that's more important than having the technical skills, in my opinion, because the tech is not the hard part. The hard part is like finding people that never lie. You know what I mean? Like, people that do not lie. Like, they don't lie. People that aren't talkers. They're not here to like impress you or to like show off or to like feel good. They're just here to do their job. Having people that know their place in the company and have a sense of humility about it, and aren't trying to do anything greater than they actually are. And they're not talkers. These things are important, and that's honestly, in my opinion, more important when hiring. So yeah, and then the last thing is, if you find that when you hire somebody, this is just a general rule, if you find that when you hire somebody that you make less money at the end of the year, then that was a bad hire. It's that simple. You do not hire people that make your business smaller. You only hire people that make your business bigger. And I know that sounds like it doesn't need said, But when you're just getting into training your team, it's really easy to just kind of get like a little bit arrogant and just feel like almost like, oh, I've got a team now. And it's almost like more important to have a team than it does to actually have a growing business. And the reality is, with every single team member you add, you should be doubling your ability to sell and to serve. And if you are removing your ability to sell and to serve with every team member you add on, then that is a recipe for disaster, and you will regret bringing on that team, because then you're gonna have to get rid of them and burn a bunch of relationships, and it's just a mess. So you should only hire when you know for a fact that that hire will add more to your bottom line and take your baseline and raise it up by at least 10 or 20%. So that's the core of how to build your team, in my opinion. Again, like I said, tons of coaching programs out there, tons of people that train on this. This is coming from a 21-year-old guy that is fairly new to business in general, but this is just the things that I've learned. You do not want people that do not align with your grand vision. You do not want people that aren't willing to respect you as a leader. You do not want people that will lie or talk up. You do not want people who aren't willing to sign a non-compete agreement, that aren't willing to go all in on your business. You only want the highest of the highest standard for your team. And when you set that bar extremely high with your own behavior, then you will naturally attract people of that quality as well. And that's my last tip. My last and final tip is, in life, you will attract versions of yourself into your life. The only people you find yourself around are people that represent something that you believe, or an action that you've done, or some form of representation of yourself. You attract mirror images of yourself, or people that represent something about yourself. And so if you want to have a better team, it starts with you being better. As a leader, as a visionary, as a business owner, it starts with you. Everything starts and ends at your ability to lead and have vision. So never blame your team. If you hired the wrong person, it's not their fault that they're bad, it's your fault for hiring them. So you have to take full responsibility for everything that happens in your business. So that being said, that is how I built my 7-figure team. My team that is able to do $100,000 a week in my business, which is incredible. And I will continue to grow the business, continue to have them pass down the torch to more people, and build out my company further and serve more people, impact more clients. And that's what we're gonna do. So hopefully this has been a valuable video to you. If it has been, be sure to leave a like, comment any of your thoughts, any of your takeaways down below. I love when you guys just share what you've learned specifically in the comments. It really helps me know what content to make next. And be sure to message me if you have any questions specifically. I'm pretty active on socials, so I'm happy to help there as well. So that being said, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next one.